This is part 2 of a 2-part episode.
It's political correctness gone mad, I tell you, mad.
I'm gonna segue into Robin's thing here, and then I need to take a minute break just because my wife is in the next room and she's snoring very loudly.
I thought you could say, I need to take a really bad.
Well, I gotta do that too, but no. Okay. So I'm gonna read this and then I gotta take a short break and then we'll come right back to it, okay? So this episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about diversity in gaming. To talk about this topic, we brought an expert. The man with a dragon almost named after him, Shivam
Bhatt. Hello.
I'm Phil DeLuca.
I'm Nate Burgess.
I'm Sean Watson.
And we are commanderin. That's fancy music. Commanderin. This is one of the things that I found most shocking about the entire Gamergate issue when it arose, was that people were unable to understand that their approach to objectification of women, that it was okay, it's just a game and so forth, was actually having a material effect on the development of their daughters, sisters. It had an effect on their mother. Mm-hmm. And all of them have female relatives, right? Because they exist. At the very least, they have one or maybe two living female relatives, right? Mm-hmm. And they did not see that having weak female characters that were objects and to be used to the betterment of the white male hero was damaging. And as a father, now I fully acknowledge that I am the beneficiary of a lot of white privilege, and to that extent my daughter will be as well. But to look at the media that she's consuming, or that we are asked to consume and offered to consume, and women are portrayed as weak, and women are portrayed as objects, or to be rescued, or simply as plot devices, right? It's very insulting and it's very disturbing because my daughter is very smart and I don't want her to lose access to that because she is shaping herself to be what society wants, right? And to this point, the inclusion of more women in media and strong women and the portrayal of strong women in that media is very important to me. And I kind of see magic as offering that not just to women, but to everyone, right? A lot more people, certainly. And I understand that there are, there's only so much you can kind of pack into one set because of the finite limitation of cards and so forth. And they're still, it feels to me, kind of they're doing what they can and they're balancing it pretty well. Now, is there room to improve? Sure.
So going back to movies, how do you feel about casting like Gerard Butler being one of the gods of Egypt?
So, I don't know if you saw recently, there's a Chinese-American movie that's coming out called The Great Wall, starring the famed Cantonese actor Matt Damon.
Huh.
It goes back to what I was saying. It's like, I think, oh my god, the gods of Egypt was a debacle, right? Like, it was wrong in every direction. I go back to Thor and the Avengers, and when people look at Idris Elba as one of the gods in Asgard, right? And they're like, a black guy can't be a god, or like a black guy can't be a Viking god,
a Norse god.
And it's like, dude, do you believe in the Norse gods? Are we going to be talking about the real Norse gods here? Because then we can really have a discussion about religion and representation. But if you're just your garden variety American who is not of the Norse tradition, perhaps telling me that a black guy can't be a fictional comic book character is not the argument you want to make. And Oh my god, it's so pathetic. Because it's just garden variety racism that they don't want to say is racism.
Is this why Star Wars The Force Awakens is not only a great film, but an important film? Because you've got a marquee, arguably the most marquee film ever made, with a black guy and a woman in the two lead characters, and the woman isn't a damsel in distress or a battle axe.
Absolutely. I mean, Star Wars unto itself was a big part of helping me become a Hindu in the first place and understanding my faith. Which is also so weird. But yeah, no, it's a big part of helping me understand. And the fact that they would take the most mega epic thing and turn it into something that a black guy can feel like, oh dude, I can fly an X-Wing too. That is so big. That is such a big deal. Because every kid plays Star Wars. Every kid wants to be a Jedi. Come on, that's
every kid wants force powers, but go ahead.
What I just don't understand, why wouldn't you want somebody else to have that joy that you had? Why wouldn't you want somebody else to sit there and say, man, that was so cool, I got to pretend to be a Jedi. Or I got to pretend to be a magic user. You know, it's like, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't... It's additive. It's all about increasing the number of people who get access to things, not taking away from somebody. You still have the ability to pretend to be Luke Skywalker. But why shouldn't, your sister be able to be a Jedi too? I'm just saying. Yeah,
it's like the Ghostbusters thing, isn't it? So when I came home from the cinema from seeing the new Ghostbusters film, do you know my copies of the 1984 Ghostbusters DVD and Blu-ray were still on the shelf? They hadn't magically disappeared or been destroyed by feminists, you know.
What?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I meant to go there and get them and I totally left it.
Yeah. I thought you had to turn them in order to see the new movie.
Well, I snuck my copy of Ghostbusters 2 in the case and they didn't notice, luckily. Melissa McCarthy, when she spots it, though, she's going to be after me.
So, Nate, I believe one of our patrons has a question about inclusion.
2 questions. Patron Robin Koss asks, I'm a complete layman, and I'm also a white male, so I've always been well represented within MTG. However, from my perspective, I think the game has gotten a lot better at representing characters from different backgrounds, with different sexual orientations, different identities, and so on, and that's a great thing. What is your take on Magic's efforts at inclusion?
I think Magic's current efforts, as I said earlier, are phenomenal. I mean, yes, there's a lot they have to do, but man, they have done such a great job so far. Because even beyond just what they're doing in the text and in the cards, the people behind it themselves have gone out of their way on social media, on websites, on other places, to be explaining themselves. And they're incredible. They're just doing, so when Kaladesh was announced, and I have a funny story about that one too. When Kaladesh was announced, you saw that they had 7 different Asian people represented as consultants. That blew my mind. That meant they actually went to people and said, hey, you know what? We are going to make this set in this world that is outside of our current experience. Can you give your lived experience and tell me what it's like to be Indian and how we can make this better? And I thought that was so phenomenal. I mean, when they had James Wyatt write Alesha's story, because he's got a trans daughter of his own, and it was incredible. He went to actual other trans people and said, hey, can you help me make this a good story to represent your experience as possible? And it shows. It shows in what they're doing. Their stories are incredible, the best they've ever been. Their inclusion is amazing. I was even just complaining to Mark Rosewater the other day that, hey man, you don't actually have any blonde, white planeswalkers. It's awkward to say so, but maybe we should have one for them too. And it's just, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see. So I gave a version of this. So I went to Seattle some time ago to go and hang out and go on vacation with my wife and stuff. And I decided to meet up with some folks from Wizards of the Coast. And I met with Allison. I met with Sean Main of Conspiracy fame and Kaladesh fame. And I met with Michael Yichow. And we went out to lunch and I gave them a shortened version of this, discussion talking about race and inclusion, because apparently that's the thing that I do now. And, and I was like, when you guys get to Kaladesh, because it hadn't been announced, I was like, when you do Kaladesh, call me. I will help you out. I will talk about this. Whatever you need, I'll even do it for free. And they looked at each other and they kind of looked at me and they're like, yeah, we totally will. And I was like, great. And then 3 days later, I'm back home in the Bay and the announcement, the next set is going to be Kaladesh. And I ping Sean. I'm like, what the hell, man? You've let me rant for an hour and a half, and you didn't say anything. And he's like, it was the hardest I've ever had to grit my teeth and not tell anything at all.
Did you feel upset that you weren't included?
It was already done, though, by that point, wasn't it?
No, I
know.
vaguely feel upset, only in the sense of any Magic player wants to make Magic sets. But
yeah, like, aw, I wanted to be involved.
Yeah, it was like, oh man, this was my one chance. I totally could have done it. But at the same time, when Origins came out, I had no trust or faith in their system. I was like sure that this was just going to be appropriative. It's going to be like turbans and meditation and yoga, and it was going to be a nightmare. But after having talked to these people extensively for a year, I have so much faith that Kaladesh is going to be incredible. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good. And I have a lot of faith that it's going to be good.
Just looking forward to going to a new plane because we've had...
If they're Eldrazi, though, I'm burning all my Magic cards and going away forever.
Oh, no.
Hey, come on. We could have one or two.
I hate the Eldrazi so much.
Eldraziст.
I think they've hit saturation point, haven't they?
Oh, God, I hope so.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next Jace Planeswalker card.
Yeah, we haven't really seen a lot of Jace. I wonder what he's up to.
I know. What has he been up to the last week or two?
They've done the Gatewatchers, the Super Friends, haven't they? Or JLA alignment. And in the JLA, certain heroes get knocked out. And I think a good move for them would be to kick Jace out of the Gatewatch via the story and put a different blue walker in.
I genuinely don't think they realized that they were saturating the market with Jace.
Well, when you read like Rosewater's responses, you get the feeling that they don't understand from our perspective. They're like, oh, Jace is only the lead of like Ravnica and like, Innistrad. He's only barely been in the other places. And I'm like, yeah, but there's been a Jace card in print for almost a decade now. And it's always the best card in the format, and it's always in every friggin' card we see, in every set we see. So, in the story, maybe he's only been in a few, but all you ever see is Jace. And I don't know, maybe there's something to be said about the fact that they're like, well, Jace represents our player. I'm like, your player is a white nerd who wants to think he's better than everybody else and is just kind of like uncertain about women and maybe not the most, wise person for all of his intellect. Is that really what you're saying?
You do get it.
And thinks he looks really good in a trench coat when he really doesn't.
Had a custom trench coat made.
And yeah, wears a hooded trench coat and can walk around without getting shanked. And I'm just like, okay, maybe you don't hear what you're saying, but it sounds awfully silly from this side.
Yeah, somewhat tone deaf, one might say. So we've had a couple of Planeswalkers recently introduced, and of course, we're bringing them up because they are people of color. In 2014 Commander, we had Teferi, the Temporal Archmage, who, as far as we can tell, is a black man and a Planeswalker. Then Saheeli Rai from Kaladesh. That's beautiful art. My wife and I were looking at it for reference for something that we might be creating for the show a little bit later.
You see that Phyrexian symbol on the thing on the right?
Yes, I saw that.
Wait, what?
In the where?
Oh, what?
That thing on the right, right next to her left hand.
Oh, yeah, I see.
It's got a Phyrexian symbol right in the front.
Yep, it does.
No. Oh, that'll be that'll be amazing.
This is what I'm saying.
Let Kaladesh be perfected.
The Phyrexians are definitely returning in the next within the next 2 years.
Hey.
I'm just being generous on the outside.
Imagine what the Phyrexians would do with a complete set of Sankara stones.
Oh, you can go to hell, buddy.
That's great.
Oh, my goodness.
And Kaya Ghost Assassin, who is a black woman.
Ghostbuster.
She's so cool.
Yeah, she's a black woman Ghostbuster.
And her jacket puts Jace to shame. That jacket is incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, Kaya is amazing. And just like so perfectly representative of the new tone of WotC, of them going out and saying, hey, we want to do this right. Help us do this right. And that's so important.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast actually involved a black woman writer in the creation of Kaya's story. I believe her name is Monique Jones. We can include a link to that article where she talks about Kaya Ghost Assassin. Do you think that this is something they're going to do from now on, where they're going to talk to people who are somewhat representative of the culture they're emulating?
I hope so. I mean, the games industry as a whole, and I speak from 10 years of experience, is very much insular, very much of the opinion that, we know better than you what your cultural expectation is like. We also don't care because you're just going to be a token representation for our actual white audience that's going to buy these games. And frankly, that does a giant disservice to all of the other people who play games. And I think this sole step of just saying, we're going to get a consultant, we're going to pay them money, and we're going to ask them to help us make this right, is so huge, not just for Magic, but for gaming. It's so big.
Right. Yeah. It has a disproportionate impact because Magic is so popular and so well known throughout the game development community. And, Sean, this gives you some hope that when they return to Phyrexia, you too will be contacted to be a consultant.
Well, yes, I hope so. I mean, I am an expert in completion. And do you know, when they do an English Empire type set, or like a Napoleonic set with a fancy English one, I hope it's not just some fat American white dude who's read a couple of Charles Dickens novels who's gonna background that.
It's going to be like Henry Hatsworth all over again. If you ever played that old Game Boy game,
that wasn't so old. Hey.
It was so good though. The most British of British gentlemen, all of his sound effects are going, what ho? And, like, what? And he's got a little monocle and a fat walrus mustache and a bowler hat, and he drinks tea in his Mecca. That is the essence of Britain.
About as accurate as Austin Powers.
What we really need is a British History Month.
Yeah, God, man.
Yeah.
Those poor Brits.
The poor underrepresented Brits.
And we can all eat mushy peas and, sing drunken shanties.
Spotted Dick.
You only eat mushy peas in the north of England, and as any good Londoner like myself will tell you, that's not really England.
But you live in the north of England now, don't you?
I live here, but that doesn't mean I'm from here.
I know what that's like.
Are you accepting or appropriating? Are you appreciating or appropriating the local culture?
I have a feeling neither.
Yeah, what's deconstructing, I think, is a more accurate thing what I'm doing to the local culture.
Oh, man.
Move back to Scotland.
I mean, for example, they now up here treat electricity with suspicion rather than fear, so we're moving forward.
Some might say that June is actually the new British History Month.
Oh, that is awful.
Thanks, Phil.
You're welcome.
Is it British History or Britain is History Month?
Well, the two are synonymous, aren't they?
So I'm reading some Kaladesh stuff here, right? So, welcome to the Great Inventors Fair, where people from all over the multiverse, inventors from all over the multiverse, are invited to come and show off their tricks. So you're getting an Indian-influenced plane that's going to have influences from people from all over the multiverse in it.
Yeah, isn't that great? Just fantastic.
Like Gerard Butler. Or Matt Damon.
Dude,
they might show up.
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of my friends are like, man, you're so blinded by being represented at all that you're willing to overlook so much. And it's true. It's like when you're dying of thirst in the desert, you will drink whatever that gentleman gives you as long as it's liquid, even if it's like the worst in the world, right? And I'm not saying that Kaladesh is going to be the worst in the world. I'm actually really excited for it. But there was a card in Kaladesh that was released called Guardian Automaton in Magic Origins, which is fantastic art. If you haven't seen it, you should look it up.
Yeah.
But it represents basically the city of Girapur. And when you look at it, there's a young girl with an afro and a dude who looks like he's from Portugal, like Vasco da Gama, and then a bunch of people who are not Indian, and then a automaton in the middle. And I sat there and I'm like, A, this would be an amazing campaign setting. I would totally play a Silk Road Spice Trade D&D game.
Yeah.
But B, where the hell are the Indian people? You gave us 6 cards in this set. How come there's no Indian people? And the answer I got, which was so disappointing, was, well, we don't want to pigeonhole the set. We're trying to be representative and make sure everybody feels included. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm hoisted on my own petard. It's the idea that, well, let's wait a second here. Representation is great, but when you're taking a world that is of a culture, and that culture hasn't been represented in the game, and then you're taking out all the people of the culture because you want to make sure you represent everybody else, that's no longer representing that culture. That's just appropriating it for a new skin on your Winamp. There's an old reference. The idea is that...
Damn. You can hear people clicking in Google. What is Winamp?
God, sorry. But, I mean, do you get what I'm saying, though? It's like, India is getting Kaladesh, right? The Indian, and by India, I mean India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, South Asia. South Asia is getting 2 sets. And of that, the second set, as you said, is probably going to be Phyrexian. May not, but who knows? But the point is, you're getting a large set and a small set, and that's going to be it. And they may come back to Kaladesh in a decade, 2 decades, 5 decades, or they may never come back. But if that's all we're going to get to represent a whole culture, and you're going to go and say, you know what, we want to make sure that Portuguese people and black people and Japanese people are represented in here. And it's like, well, that's not fair though, right? I mean, fair is such a weird word to use.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's like, that's like not even the word that I mean, but it's the first instinct you have of like, I've waited so long, you're giving me the thing, but you're taking it away. It's like when I was at PAX 3 years ago when they released the From the Vault 20. So I waited overnight and outside I camped out with a whole bunch of other people to get into PAX to get in line to get the thing first. And they're like, walk, don't run. And we're all running and we're trying to get there. And we get in line and they have 10 copies of From the Vault 20 at cost. And I'm like, all right, it's going to be awesome. We're going to get it. And I'm number 13 in line. And I'm like, oh. So a couple of dudes in front of me, they leave. And so I'm number 10 in line. And the line goes slowly forward. And they're selling the copies. And somebody limps up and they're like, oh, we were a military person and we were handicapped and stuff. And they give them their reserved copy. And I'm like, okay, well, there's one left. And there's somebody who's not coming. And the other person left, it's going to be mine. And the lady at the stand, she takes it. She takes out, she's like, well, I guess nobody's here. This is going to be yours and we'll be done. She gives it to me. She puts it in my hands. Before she takes her hands off of it, this woman comes limping up and it's like, excuse me, I believe that was mine. I had asked you guys last week to hold one for me. And I'm like, what the hell? You didn't wait in... And the woman takes it out of my hand and gives it to this other person. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I've waited for like 12 hours or something and camped out and done everything you've asked. I've done all of the things. I've waited. I was polite. I gave up whatever other things to do this. You put it in my hands. You had my credit card and you took it away. That's kind of, I mean, I guess that's privilege in a nutshell, right? Like, that's like what this feels like sometimes. Like, you're giving me a thing. It's in my hand. I've waited. I've done everything you said. And now you're taking it away.
Oh my God, that burns me.
And it was, oh man, I'm salty as hell about that. But also...
What did you say? How did you deal with it?
What do you say? What do you say to that? Like, you look at her and you're like...
You say, sorry, I waited in line for this.
You look at that person and you're like... And she's like, well, here, how about this Chandra pin instead? And I was fuming and I stomped off because I couldn't deal anymore. I was like,
Wait, did they really offer you a Chandra pin?
Yeah. And a pair of her goggles that they were giving away that year.
Hey, they must have seen you were Indian and thought, this will keep him happy.
But it's just like, oh, it burned. Oh, it burned so much. That's kind of what I'm worried is going to happen with Kaladesh. I'm worried that it's going to be everything I wanted and then it's going to get taken away.
I don't think it's going to be Phyrexian, because the second set's called Aether Revolt, isn't it? And the Aether is It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right. It's not going to be Phyrexian.
Yeah, so it's going to be like I think it's going to be an India versus British Empire class system. No, but I think it's going to be the poor revolting against an imposed class hierarchy.
Yes.
And that would be cool, in my opinion. But I think there could be one piece of equipment that would keep us both happy, Shivam, culturally, and that is artifact equipment, trusty cricket bat.
Yes, sir. I am on board for this.
Good Lord. So that touches on the point that Patron Nick Eusenia had asked, but we're not going to go into that. I guess changing the question a little bit is, if they're worried about representing the people of Kaladesh fairly, as in, there will be white people, black people, people of all heritages, do you think that they're going to start representing, in particular this example, South Asians or Indian people more in other sets?
That's a tough question, isn't it?
That's where I was going with this.
I mean, I hope so. I would love that to be the case. I know it's not going to be the case. I mean, how many other Asian people have we seen since Kamigawa? Probably none. Maybe whatever few people in Bant.
Well, the Tarkir.
Well, yeah, okay, Tarkir, good. But that was a very long time between Kamigawa and Tarkir. Have you seen many of those outside of the milieu of the setting? Not really. I think making Saheeli into a planeswalker helps a lot, because it means that as a planeswalker, she can get into stories. But at the same time, we've got the Wonder, the Super Friends, who are already set as a team of 5. They're going to show up everywhere. I don't know if every minor planeswalker they make is going to show up everywhere. Certainly, we haven't seen like Vraska or Koth of the Hammer, the other dark-skinned planeswalker. When was the last time you saw or even thought about Koth, right? Like, he showed up in Mirrodin and got crushed, and maybe, hopefully, he's alive somewhere?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about what Wizards is planning on doing, because if they're planning on each set being a silo culture or concept, I don't think they're going to have room or ideas to be able to make diversity show up like that. I just hope it doesn't become flavor of the month. I don't want it to be like, oh, we're in Theros, it's Greek land, and then we're in India land, and then it's like, let's not make this into Walt Disney World. This is not Epcot Center. Well, I mean, I guess maybe Ravnica is the Epcot Center, and then each of the planes around it is one of the little, like, India land and Japan land.
Hey, that means that if they do that, so each new plane is a different culture based loosely on a modern day Earth, our Earth culture. That means they're having a story where 4 shiny white people with their token Indian friends turn up and fix that plane's problems.
Oh, no.
Gosh.
I just
Could it
dawned
be?
on me. That's awful.
You don't
I
say.
really hate the Gatewatch as a concept. I don't need JLA in my Magic.
So they are sort of the white tourists, aren't they?
They are, yeah, with their token Indian friend.
All I'm saying is the white savior complex is real, and we have one Bellerin to thank for it.
I was thinking about this the other day, that most of the Gatewatch were white. Gideon notwithstanding, frankly, he's kind of retconned into...
He's still kind of white, right? I mean, he's darkened a bit, but...
Well, he's Greek, and Greek people would consider themselves white. They'd be Mediterranean white, but they're still European white people.
Yeah. And to be fair, he's Persian in a Greek universe.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
Retconned.
I mean...
Kinda.
Let's think about this let's look at Battle for Zendikar for a second, the story there, right? There's a whole bunch of people who are trying very hard to fight this, and then these guys come in, swoop in, destroy the bad guys, and leave. Whoops. Okay.
Yeah, why was Nissa, who is a Zendikarian by birth, not more of the focus of that story? Why did Jace and all that stuff have to happen? Yeah.
Well, yeah, anyways, but I mean, that's like, even Innistrad, we had this amazing set of stories about Thalia and about Avacyn and about all of these other things going on the plane. And then at the very last second, we have Liliana and Tamio come and shove, Emrakul into a moon and call it a day and cheer and leave. And you're like, well, wait, what happened to Thalia and Odric and all the people who were there?
The Cathars and all that stuff.
I mean, even taking the race issue aside of, like, the white savior, it's almost the American savior complex of, like, all of our World War II stories, right? Like, the Europeans are fighting and dying and doing all this stuff. Americans sweep in, we save the day and leave. Yay, Matt Damon on the cover, print it.
Well, we did.
Do you know the greatest piece of insulting film for that is? The film U571.
The original or the remake?
Americans...
Oh.
The Americans discover and decrypt the Enigma machine, all done by John Bon Jovi, actually, of all people. Oh, God. Yeah, anyway.
Yep. That actually happened, Sean.
Was he living on a prayer?
His career is. Oh. So there's so much more to this topic of diversity in gaming. We have barely even touched on the sexism portion of this and representation of women. We'll actually talk about that in a later show, I think. And our all-male regular cast recognizes that this is a real issue.
White.
Our all-white male cast recognizes.
Middle class as well.
Middle class.
For all of my racial concerns, I'm still a generic cis dude, so you may want to just find another.
Yeah, that's another topic. Oh, before we leave the sexism, anybody who listening should take a look at the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media. We'll include a link to that website. Gina Davis is awesome and studied media with some pretty disgusting results, frankly. Disgusting on the part of our society. Eternal Witness also does not count as diversity. And you just mentioned cis. We have a whole section on LGBTQ that we were going to talk about. We already sort of talked about Alicia, but there's also the non-binary Ashiok. We had a wonderful email from a listener, which we'll get to, I guess, when we cover this in more detail. But cis is short for cisgender, and that is denoting or relating to a person whose self-identity conforms with the gender that corresponds to their biological sex. So someone who portrays themselves as a man and is a man. Someone who portrays themselves as a woman and is a woman, i.e. not a transgender person, yeah. And although it would be awesome, our recording is like 2 hours into this, so this might be another two-parter. Gosh, we have a lot of gabbing on this show. Yeah, it's almost 2 hours, so we'll see where it ends. But you said if we wanted to get you riled up, we would talk about religion and Magic's historic view of religion. Oh, we have to let it go.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe bring me back on if you still have any listeners after the 2 hours of listening to me for the rant about
after this one. And I guess listeners, if you're still upset about this, you should probably feel free to unfollow us. I don't know what to say. We're doing what we can to improve diversity in gaming, despite us all being white men. Hosts.
Man.
And if you do strongly feel against this sort of stuff, I'll engage you in a conversation as long as it's a conversation, not just shouting at each other.
Yes. And that is, of course, best done on Twitter.
Yes.
At Copain26.
Because every discussion on Twitter is wonderful and safe and full of people who come out feeling better about themselves.
Yes.
Shivam, there's a very final note from me. Do you know what the biggest bloop storm I got on Twitter was about? Wasn't about race, religion, anything like that. I dared to insult green as a colour.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
The hate I got. Oh.
Well, you deserve to be killed for that, Sean.
My only non-EDH deck is Modern Elves. Green, mono, green elves.
You need to be killed by a swarm of hornets that show up and fight all of your creatures.
Yeah.
Death touch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
Oh, man. Magic and religion is... I'm just going to be very short about this.
I will hold you to it. Okay. I'm watching the clock.
It'll be very short. First off, okay, so Richard Garfield was interested in things from Asia and stuff, and he did a really cool job with the original sets and with Arabian Nights of bringing things in. I mean, yes, Army of Allah is maybe not a thing you're going to see in modern Magic, but it was pretty neat. However, when we got to The Dark, it was developed by Jesper Mirfors, who is very much not a fan of, shall we say, organized religion, and he made that set to kind of bring out what his feelings were for it, which is why you got things like Preacher, a corrupt guy who can control magic your dude. And if you're not playing Preacher in your EDH deck, it's super good. You should be playing it.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But okay, I'm just going to get to the bottom line of it. Actually, maybe you could just remove that whole segment.
If you want, we can.
Yeah, if you can. Because
we really need more than a couple of minutes, and I actually let you go 1 minute over. We really need more than a couple of minutes because I think this is fantastic.
Maybe that's a different episode.
Yeah, it might be a different episode.
Yeah, I think that's a different episode, and also I think that I probably would have actually offended people, and I would really rather not do that.
Oh, God! Oh! We should have done it.
Yeah, I mean, I would happily come back and talk about it, but I need to actually prepare for that. Because I want to get examples. Because there's a lot of interesting examples.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe not right now.
I think me and you could have an interesting conversation on it, Shivam.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So even though this would rile you up, we're going to leave that for another time. Maybe we'll have you back.
I would love to.
And do an entire episode on religion in Magic.
And then we can also talk about Hearthstone in Magic.
Yes. Now, do you play Hearthstone?
I actually do. Because when my son was born, Hearthstone had just come out. And I could play it on my phone one-handed while feeding him. And it scratched the itch that Magic Online couldn't, because Magic Online takes a lot of brain power. And when you're playing Hearthstone on your phone, it's much easier to just play for 5 minutes, and then walk away when you need to handle baby stuff.
Yeah, for the first 6 months of Sean's son Blake's life, that's actually how Sean watched pornography.
Anyways, I'm getting the evil eye from my wife, so
yeah, that's actually the pressure. I was feeling it through the microphone and Skype here. So, but we're going to ask you to how much pressure are you? We're going to do our outro segment, and then at the end, have you take us out.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. As much as we'd like to keep talking to Shivam, dear listeners, we have to let him go. He does have family pressures on him. He needs to do something other than record a podcast as a guest with his Saturday. Oh, spoiler, we're recording this on a Saturday. And my family, of course, needs some air conditioning since we live in Southern California and it's sweltering. So thank you for tuning in. We hope that this encourages some insightful conversation within the community, within our community specifically. And it never hurts to spread the word about us, especially this episode, so that you can engage more people in the conversation. If you want to support our podcast, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, or just go up and leave us a rating on iTunes. Maybe I shouldn't say that with GamerGators, but and if you really want to support us, then head on over to patreon.com/commanderin.mtg and just give us $1 a show. We're incredibly grateful to all of our patrons, or actually, I should say, patrons.
Can I say one last thing?
Sir.
I just want to thank all of you guys for letting me on for this very sensitive topic, and I really appreciate it because, again, it's representation, right? Like, you're allowing me a platform to air issues that don't necessarily get talked about. And to all of the listeners out there, I genuinely appreciate that you guys sat through and listened to this. I just want everybody to realize that this isn't meant to be an attack. This is not meant to be a challenge to you as a person, just as a reflection on experiences that I've lived. This is meant to be some way to kind of spark a conversation. It's not meant to be a lecture that's one-sided, because diversity and change doesn't happen when somebody is just telling you to change.
That's right.
Because then everybody gets defensive, we fight, and we don't want any part of it. So all I'm asking is that you sit and maybe think about it. Just next time you play a game, next time you sit and look at a Magic card, just think about who might be happy to see that card in the game. Who is going to look at that card and say, you know what? Finally, this is for me. Because not everything, as Mark Rosewater would tell us, not everything is for all of us, but everything is for somebody. And for that one person, that might be the world to them. So
that's right.
When we're sitting there and looking at cards like Alesha or cards like Saheeli, rather than say, man, why are they forcing this stuff on us? Sit there and say, you know what? Some kid out there is going to look at this card and be able to sit there and say, that game gets me. And then we're going to have another player, and then Magic is going to survive. And that's all we want, right? We just want our game to keep going.
That's right.
So thanks everybody for listening, and thank you for letting just another fan show up on the show. I didn't even get to talk about my decks.
That's absolutely true, so I guess next time we'll do that. Shivam, one other thing. How can people find you if they want to engage you in conversation? Well,
the best way to find me is definitely on Twitter. I am at Electrotal, which ELEKTROTAL, because I played Diablo back in 1996, and that's the name I stuck with. And I am happy to talk to anybody about any of this stuff. I love talking about religion, class, culture, race, and gaming. And I'm happy to help people, because I think gaming has helped me so much that everybody should be able to have this same experience that I got.
I agree.
Awesome.
Gaming has been very helpful to all of us, I think.
Gaming is a cornerstone of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are gamers, and not necessarily in that completely nerdy living in our parents' basement stereotype.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Look, man, housing is expensive. Millennials have hard times getting gigs. And I come from a culture where we have extended families. So when I moved out of my house with my wife, my mom was like, how could you leave us? We had a total basement room set up for you and everything. And it was just like I had betrayed the family by moving out of the basement.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, if I had the choice, I would live with my parents, but thanks for reminding me they're dead.
Oh, Phil. Just go out on a bummer. Phil's dead mum and dad.
That was meant as a joke. Of course it was meant as a joke.
Oh, man. God, you guys are so much fun to talk to. I love this.
It's just a blast. We love to talk. And we do that quite a bit. And
yeah, my timer says 2:40, so we've definitely had a smidge of talking today.
Yeah, it's been a blast, by the way. So come play test with us, and if you donate $10 or more per episode, you can come join the patron chat we host over on Facebook. Our theme song was created for one of the hosts. Which one?
Me.
Nate Burgess.
I actually really like the theme song, by the way. I love Westerns. I think it's super cool.
All right.
I actually want to make sure and tell you guys that. It's so cool.
Yay. Our logo was created for the podcast by mrpicto.co.uk with assistance from my wife, Kelly. And special thanks to our tech whizzes, Jessie, Thomson, and Graham Frank, and to Justin for his server space. You can reach us by going to our website, commanderin.mtg.com. Our email is cast@commanderin.mtg.com. You can find us on all the social media by searching for commanderin.mtg.podcast. If you're looking for the deck review group, search Facebook for Commanderin Deck Review Group. Individually, on Twitter, I'm at Ketjack.
I am at Copain26.
I'm at Mr. Plorg.
And Shivam, ordinarily we have our guest take us out. If you would take us out, and maybe, we have a whole bunch of brand new Japanese listeners too. If you wanted to say something nice to our Japanese listeners who maybe don't think you're a terrorist anymore.
皆さんありがとうございます。さよなら。And see you next time.
And just say for me, and that's our show.
Oh, no, ne.
Excellent. Oh, that wasn't it, was it?
No. What I said was, oops.
Yeah.
Hang on, just 1 second.
You can do it in Hindi if you want.
You can choose a language.
Okay, no, dude, now I need to do this. Give me a second. I need to Google a thing.
That is the end of our show.
This is the end of Commanderin.
Sumimasen.
Just 1 second, damn it. I'm going to do this.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Oh, man. Okay, look.
Can't let it lie.
May we consign your show to oblivion.
To hell with it.
Oh, wait, I put the wrong translator.
Yeah. 皆さん、それは私たちのショーでした。ありがとうございました。そして、さよなら。
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, wow. Shivam, really?
I was trying to remember the word for show.
So you just say show.
May your entertainment dream the sleep of death.
Commanderin. Ordinarily, the sexy talk begins about 25 minutes into the record, so you're due for it.
What religion are you, Shivam, by the way?
I am a Hindu.
Good religion. That's one of the ones you can't be joining. You have to be born into, right?
We're not really evangelical. Yeah, basically. If you want to be a Hindu, sure. Here you go. Here's your membership card. Happy birthday.
You give out membership cards?
It's like whatever you want.
I want one.
I always appreciate any religion that has a pantheon of gods, not just one.
Pick your favorite.
Yeah, I basically think that that any religion that has, well, this isn't 100% right because maybe the wrong God was doing it, or perhaps it was God of being a and he was doing it, or she was doing it. And that's better than God moves in mysterious ways.
My favorite is that in the Rig Veda, one of the oldest, maybe the oldest central text of Hinduism of the ancient days, there's the creation hymn, which basically ends with like, we don't know. God wasn't there, I wasn't there. Maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't. Whatever.
Who knows, really?
Is it really important? Doesn't matter. You are here, so you have been created. Yeah?
Yeah, like literally, this is what it says. But after all, who knows and who can say where it all came from and how creation happened? The gods themselves are later than creation, so who knows when it came from? When all creation had its origin, he, whether he fashioned it or not, who surveys it or maybe not, probably knows, but might not also know. Which is just straight up like, yeah, hedge your bets.
Illuminati confirmed. Toodaloo, toodaloo, toodaloo.
Okay, of all world creation myths, I'm ranking that behind number 2 for me now. Number 1 being the evil intergalactic overlord Xenu, trapped alien souls in volcanoes and attached them to us.
Good old Xenu.
No, you were on the back of a turtle.
That's actually another Hindu myth with the endless turtles going all the way down and 4 elephants holding up the next turtle that are then 4 elephants on the back of him that are holding up the next turtle.
Mm-hmm.
Discworld?
Yeah, that's actually a Hindu creation myth. We have a lot of them. We tend to collect. Like, Hinduism is not an exclusionary religion. It's just kind of additive.
Yeah. Well, who knows?
It's like, whatever. It's one of my favorite stories is like the Christian missionaries came to India early on and were like, we bring the tale of the one God who is here and Savior and blah, blah, blah. And the Hindu guy's like, great, put him on the shelf next to the other 3 one gods. And it's like, and we'll be good to go.
Dude, that's going to get you burned.